Hey, P Macro. All right, moving into Unit 3. This unit focuses on one of the biggest and most important graphs, aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and it also covers some fiscal policy. So we'll work through. Today's lecture looks at just aggregate demand. It's a fairly short lecture, so we should get through this pretty quick and then move into aggregate supply. So what is aggregate demand? Anytime you see the word aggregate, basically it means add it all together. So if we're aggregating things, it's the total, everything together, right? So when we use aggregates, we combine all the prices and all the quantities, which leads us to aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is all the goods and services that a buyer is willing and able to purchase at different price levels. So when we talk aggregate demand, we're not just talking about the demand for a water bottle. We're talking about all the demand for everything produced within the United States. It's this huge, it's like the mother of all demands, right? So demand for everything by everyone in the US, that's aggregate demand. There's an inverse relationship between price level and real GDP in this, and I'll show you that on the graph in the next slide. So price level, when we talk price level, we're talking inflation, right? So price level is how expensive things are. If the price level goes up, we're having inflation. If the price level goes down, we're having deflation. So an increase in inflation, the real GDP demanded falls. A decrease or deflation, total demand so our GDP increases. So things get more expensive, we have inflation, people are going to demand less. Things get cheaper, people demand more. So here's our graph, right? Big difference here. Our y-axis is labeled price level, not just price. So that's a measure of inflation now. Our x-axis is real domestic output, which is real gross domestic product. And our aggregate demand curve looks just like a regular demand curve, but now it's the demand curve for all the goods and services produced in the US. So AD is demand by consumers, businesses, government, and foreign countries, right? It's not just consumer demand, it's everything, right? And if you notice the trend up here, you're going to see that aggregate demand is just the line of GDP. This is the expenditures approach, consumer spending plus investment spending plus government spending plus net exports. That's what aggregate demand is made up of. So what definitely doesn't shift this curve? The answer is a change in price level, right? So if we just have inflation, we're going to move from one point to a different point. Where a change in price didn't shift the curve with a regular supply and demand graph, a change in price level doesn't shift this curve. So let's explain why it looks the way it does. So there's three reasons why it's downward sloping. First one's what we call the wealth effect. Higher price levels reduce the purchasing power of money. This decreases the quantity of expenditures, right? We see inflation, people can't buy as much, therefore GDP goes down. Opposite on that, lower price level increases purchasing power of money, and then people buy more, right? Deflation, you can buy more, people get more. So if the price level doubles, people are going to buy less stuff because they have less purchasing power. So your relationship, the big takeaway, price level goes up, GDP demand goes down. So that's why we see a downward sloping line. Next piece is the interest rate effect. When the price level increases, lenders need to charge higher interest rates to get a real return on their loan. Higher interest rates discourage consumer spending and business investment. So when you take out a loan, you get interest on it, right? The higher that interest rate is, the less loans people are going to take out. The lower that interest rate is, the more loans people are going to take out. So an increase in the price level leads to an increase in interest rates. If things get more expensive, they have to raise the interest rates to cover that, so they're still making a profit. So moving from 5% to 25%, you're less likely to take out a loan to improve your business, right? If you're getting a loan at 25%, you probably don't want to take that loan, right? So our relationship, price level goes up, GDP demanded goes down, right? So again, causing it to be a downward sloping line. And the third piece is the foreign trade effect. When U.S. price level rises, foreign buyers purchase fewer U.S. goods and American buyers more foreign goods. Exports fall and imports rise, causing real GDP demanded to fall. So we see higher price levels, right? Things cost more in the U.S. Foreign buyers aren't going to buy stuff from us. Things cost more in the U.S. Americans are going to buy cheaper stuff from foreign countries. So if prices triple in the U.S., Canada will no longer buy U.S. goods because they're a bad deal. They can get them cheaper somewhere else, causing quantity demanded for U.S. products to fall. So our relationship, price level goes up, GDP demanded goes down. Again, downward sloping line. So that's why aggregate demand looks the way it does, because of those three reasons. Okay, what shifts the aggregate demand curve? You got to remember that the AD curve is essentially just GDP. So any change in consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, or net exports is going to shift the curve. So if GDP, an increase in spending shifts aggregate demand, and decrease in spending shifts it to the right. Sorry, increase shifts it to the right, decrease shifts it to the left, right? So if any of these categories here, C, I, G, or X of N, increase, right, we get more spending, our curve goes to the right, it increases. And if any of those decrease, our curve goes to the left, right? So let's break them down, kind of run through some examples. First one is consumer spending. So an increase in disposable incomes. So if we have higher incomes, people have more money, they're going to buy more stuff. Therefore, aggregate demand will shift to the right. Consumer expectations. If we fear a recession, people hold on to their money, they buy less stuff, aggregate demand shifts to the left. Household indebtedness, right? So if we have a lot of households carrying a lot of debt in our country, people don't have as much disposable income because of that. Therefore, it shifts the curve to the left. And then taxes, if we decrease income taxes, we're taxing people less, people have more money, they're going to buy more stuff, shifts aggregate demand to the right. The next piece is changes in investment spending. Remember, this is businesses now. So if we change real interest rates, the price for borrowing money, right? So if we adjust those, if interest rates increase, businesses are going to borrow less money. Therefore, it shifts aggregate demand to the left. If they decrease, businesses are going to borrow more money and it will shift it to the right. So the Federal Reserve just cut interest rates to virtually zero, meaning they're trying to increase aggregate demand because of the slowdown in our economy caused by the quarantine. Okay, future business expectations. High expectations. If you think you're going to have a profitable business, you're probably more likely to borrow money, right? So that'll shift AD to the right. Productivity and technology. If we see major improvements that allows us to do things better, like new robots, that will shift AD to the right. It's going to increase aggregate demand. And then same rule with taxes, right? If we raise corporate taxes, corporations have less money to invest, therefore they spend less, and it shifts AD to the left, decreases it. Next piece, government spending. So if they decrease defense spending, right, they spend less on the military, that is going to decrease aggregate demand, shift it to the left. Increase in public works programs, right? We're hiring people to build schools and dams and parks, right? That's putting more money out there, so it shifts aggregate demand to the right. And then net exports, the last piece here. Exchange rates, right? If the US dollar depreciates relative to the euro, so it loses value, right? That means people in Europe can get a better deal buying stuff from the US, so that would increase aggregate demand in that case, or affect it. National income compared to abroad, right? If one of our major importers, someone who's buying stuff from us, goes into a recession, so like Canada, for example, goes into a recession, right? That's going to decrease our net exports and slow down our economy, so AD goes to the left. If we enter a recession, right, that's going to affect how much money we have to spend, right? everything's going to kind of slow down. So that will shift our AD curve. And you can kind of see you add it all together. So aggregate demand is real GDP, which is C plus I plus G plus X in, right? If you can get that down, you got aggregate demand down. Pretty straightforward. And that wraps up the first part. We'll move into aggregate supply, and then we'll start to build the graph.